America's southern border has become a war zone. Human traffickers, drug smugglers, and terrorists flow across the Rio Grande with impunity, secure in the knowledge that no one will stop them. A distant federal government lectures Americans on their privilege while punishing overworked Border Patrol agents who were helpless to stem the tidal wave of invaders and determined migrants. Second-generation Cuban-American Marcos Zamora is a military vet, more patriotic than most Americans. No longer able to ignore the chaos at his doorstep, he acts. Joined by his best friend Gus, they hit the border every night, saving lives while stopping violent drug cartels and other opportunists. The government reacts with fury at Marcos' attempts to preserve American sovereignty, deploying the full might of their enforcement agencies. But Marcos understands that the only thing the rich and powerful fear is bad publicity, and he records every encounter. Whoever he is, this private American must be stopped. Illustrated by Richard Bonk and written by Eisner winner Mike Barron, Private American is his version of Captain America, and maybe a little Punisher, taking part in this ongoing, violent, and very real battle of good versus evil in the war for American sovereignty. Grab your copy at theprivateamerican.com.
We have a secure border, and that is a priority for our administration.
Hello, everyone. And hello, Mike Barrett. Thank you for being here with me today. We're here to talk about your book, Private American. I'm very excited to have you on.
Thank you, Rini. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome, awesome. So let's just jump into it because I know you said you could stick with us for about an hour. So let's make the most of that time. Yes. So let's make the absolute most of that time. Hello, chat. Thank you, everyone, for being here for our early show today. Thank you for sharing all the links. We saw Coach talking shit in the chat earlier. That's all right. What's up, John? There's Jeremy Burtz. Robert Romano's there. Hello. Ralph Back, Hutzel, Aviator. A lot of our regulars, Alex VRB, Maromi, hi. And thank you to all the mods for already posting link and everything. And if the link for Private American is in the description, and if everyone can post the links to Mike's Twitter and for the link to Private American in the chat as well, that would be really great. Because as I understand, is Private American still unsearchable on Indiegogo?
Well, it's not unsearchable, but the only way you can find it is by following our link, which is theprivateamerican.com. Theprivateamerican.com.
Theprivateamerican.com. All right. Actually, let me pull that up as well so we can take a look at that. But so that means, so it's not unsearchable, but you are shadow banned still, right?
Right.
Or no? Right.
Yeah,
okay.
We are shadow banned, along with 12 of our good friends, and you know who they are.
I know. It's been an entire fiasco and no one can make heads or tails of it. But I know that a lot of people have been working around it. Like Shane, for example, has made his own website for Nine Lives Comics. Oh, I just went to theprivateamerican.com and it directly links to the Indiegogo. Okay, great. That's smart because the important thing is you have to make your campaign show up at the top of Google. And Indiegogo, what they do with the shadow banning is it stops your campaign from showing up. So that's not great, but it's an easy workaround and you figured it out. So that's fantastic.
We're working on a solution just like Shane and Yancey. We're going to create our own crowdfunding platform.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. All right, let me pull the campaign up. You're at 65,967. Almost at 66. So close, everybody. We got to get to at least like 66, 67 tonight. I know we can do it. Come on. I know you guys love the concept. We saw the concept in the... Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I have to stress, because there's been such a shitstorm over this book. It's not raised by me, but raised by others who object to the topic, because we're not supposed to talk about the southern border because it reflects badly on the ruling oligarchs. But the whole point of the book is to entertain. It's a real exciting story. I think that 10 or 20 or even 10 years ago, this topic would not be forbidden the way it is today. It's only natural that the Punisher would be down on the southern border. And that's how the story came about. I wondered what would the Punisher be doing today if I were writing him? Well, he'd be down on the southern border. It's axiomatic that no organism, neither a single cell nor a nation, can survive without controlling its borders. That's just common sense, but common sense isn't very common these days. As always, though, my first job is to entertain. It'll grab you by the throat on the first page. You won't be able to put it down, and you won't be able to forget it.
I love that. It'll grab you by the throat, just like your main character is grabbing these traffickers and murderers and drug dealers by the throat. It's so absurd that I've been watching this whole fiasco with like all the people smearing your campaign, and it's patently ridiculous because what they have been saying, and do you want me to pull the articles up? Do you mind?
No, go ahead.
Yeah. So because we do have to talk about this because I find it offensive that they want to censor a story about good old fashioned American vigilantism and basically armed private citizens. Your story's about it's an armed private citizen doing the job that the government should be doing, but they're not.
That's right.
So it has nothing to do with race. In fact, your character is a Cuban American who is trying to save the lives of migrants that are being targeted by criminals at the borders, which is a real problem that's happening. But in response to you telling this story, this is what has happened. You've had your campaign shadow banned, and there's been very, very smart people, sarcasm, writing articles like this, basically claiming that your book the book by you and Richard is somehow racist, which is stupid.
I'd like to show you a picture of the person who wrote that article.
Oh, I can imagine it. I can already see it in my mind.
It's now on it's in the Facebook private message.
Oh, let me see. Oh dear. Oh man. Ooh, it looks exactly like what I imagined.
Exactly.
Oh gosh. Yeah, you guys can't see it, but purple. Is this public? This is like public picture, right? So I don't want to like be accused of harassing anybody.
No, I took it off one of her. I think I took it off her Instagram. But I had never heard of this person until she decided to try and destroy my career out of the blue.
Right.
I don't know what animus she has against me, but again, I have never heard of her until this article appeared.
Yeah, this is absolutely nuts right here. She's like, what is her name? Star Mignon? I don't think that's a real name. No. But, well, that's what a lot of these people do. They have no talent themselves, and they want to tear down more accomplished people, and by claiming that, well, if you're the older generation or people who have earned their place in the industry through merit, they don't deserve it because it came so easily to them. I mean, because what do they know about actual hard work? And someone like you who's been working in the industry for so long, an Eisner winner, someone who's contributed to the art form, well, they don't know about that. So all they can do is tear down other people who have laid all the groundwork before them. And I remember Shane saying that in somewhat similar terms, and that's completely true. Yes, follow Mike Barron. Thank you, Hutzel. So, this crazy person, I don't know if I should I pull up the picture. She's not worth our time. It's not worth our time to pay more attention to this person right here.
No, I didn't want to sue. I hate that. I hate to get involved with this. I just want to create stories. And I wasn't going to, but my friend and partner, Chris Brawley, talked me into it because we can't allow these people to get away with this sort of stuff. And she called for everybody to write Kickstarter and tell them to get my racist comic removed, while she herself has a project funding on Kickstarter. And she succeeded. She succeeded in getting Kickstarter to kick our campaign off, and she did it with Crowdfunder as well. No. And so we really have no choice but to sue her for libel, slander, and tortious interference.
Right. Well, I'm sure you don't want to go through the trouble of that because I'm sure nobody does. But here's this wonderful lady who I use the word lady very loosely because ladies don't act like this. You don't falsely accuse somebody of being a horrible person. You know, you don't water down an accusation like racism. And
I know.
I'm very offended. I have experienced racism, and I think it's stupid that they're accusing your book, which is patently not racist, of racism. She doesn't know what the fuck she's talking about. So, you know, she's put this picture and her public information, her name is all out there in the public sphere, and she should have to, and people like her and a lot of the people targeting her, I think they have to face consequences sooner or later, you know? You can't go around tortiously interfering or screwing with people's businesses like this. And it's always from one side. So I'm glad that you're pushing back against that.
Thank you.
Oh, Ethan's in the chat. Hello, Ethan. What's up? Ethan's drinking all day. Rock the mic with Malin. Cool. Oh, what's up? What's up? Oh my gosh. Right. So screw those people. They're going to get their comeuppance sooner or later. Again, they have no merit and they want to tear you down. I saw like these are ridiculous. I saw this article. There are just some ridiculous accusations. Like the Gadsden flag is a dog whistle to Tea Party and like she can't. What is this? She can't even spell this right.
It's a Revolutionary War flag that usually goes with the slogan "Don't tread on me."
It is. It's an anti-authoritarianism flag, and
right.
Apparently, I mean, this is one of those people that are so far into. They're the extremists, and they're so far to the left that anybody who's even sort of an average American or anyone who just likes freedom or the Gadsden flag it's an anti-authoritarianism flag, and it's more of a libertarian flag than anything else. And so she thinks that that's somehow an extremist, but it's because from her point of view, well, normal people are like really far and extreme to her. But
yeah, well, you know there's some question
nuts.
whether the United States will survive, and I question that myself because it seems to me that it's just teetering on the brink of falling into tyranny. I think we might already be there. But thank God that we still have the freedom to tell the stories we want. I don't go looking for trouble. And in fact, my next book, Bronze Stars, a supernatural Western, which I'm doing with Pat Broderick, is the greatest work of Pat's career. And Pat is a classic liberal. He has always voted Democratic, but we're good friends. He's a traditional liberal in the sense that he welcomes all points of view.
Right.
And that's a dying breed these days, unfortunately.
That's true. That's good to see. And you sent me this image. So this is good. When is this going to come out? You want to talk about
we're going to
this
launch this month, I think, later this month. Chris is working on the trailer right now. As you know, his trailers are the best. We played that Private American trailer. And that's because Chris is a professional cinematographer, and he always gets these terrific voice actors. And I've been looking at a lot of trailers on Kickstarter and Crowdfunder and Indiegogo, and a lot of them just have music and some dialogue, not spoken dialogue, just a strip running along the bottom that describes what you're seeing. And folks, I got to tell you, if you add voiceover and you do it right, it's much more effective. It's much more powerful.
That's true, like inner dialogue, right?
Yeah, it's just a narrator, you know, and our narrator happens to sound just like Sam Elliott. In fact, it may be Sam Elliott. I don't know, but that's what you want is somebody who does a blurb for it. It's like any good movie trailer. They thought they had him buried, you know, whatever. And
right. Ralph Mack asks, I have not been missing super chats. I've been starring them. I'll read all of them. For Australian 2, thank you. Hi, Mike. Would you be interviewed by a real pro, John? Oh, I'm sure.
I would be happy to. I would be happy to. You can reach me on Twitter at Bloody Red Baron. Awesome.
Matt G said, EVS is not wrenched in chat. I'm fine. I'm so sorry. I'll wrench him now. I'm the worst. How is he not wrenched?
What does that mean?
Because I'm terrible. Oh, so if you're a mod on a chat, you can post links and you have like superpowers in the chat, basically. So okay, I'll find Ethan and I'll wrench him and atone for my terrible sins. I'll atone for my sins. But while that's happening, Mr. V for I don't know what that amount is, but that's 2 of some currency. Sic vis pacem parabellum. I read that very badly, but
Must
thank
be
you.
lira.
It must be what? Sorry.
2 lira. 2 lira. Italian.
Okay. Interesting. I'm sure that's something inspiring and wonderful. There Ethan is. All right. So while I fix my terrible mistakes, why don't you tell us what we can get with this campaign? What do you have on here, and what it's all about?
Well, we're not very ambitious. We think the story is the thing, and the story is what you'll remember and what you'll be happy with. We're offering 3 covers. There they are. One is by Dan Lawless, one is by my old friend Steve Rude, and one is by Richard, who drew the book. The book is completely done. It's being colored right now, and Richard is hard at work on our next project, which is Sherlock Holmes meets Captain Nemo.
Ooh, Sherlock Holmes meets Captain Nemo.
Yeah, if Kareem Abdul-Jabbar can write a Sherlock Holmes novel, so can I.
Ethan says it means if you want peace, prepare for war. Godlike.
That's true.
That's a good saying, though. That is true. It's another variation of saying, speak softly but carry a big stick, right?
That's right. Peace through strength.
Peace through strength. That's correct. So you have 3 covers, and you mentioned before the show that you're very close to being done with the art. So when are you projecting to finish this, and when is the fulfillment?
It'll be this month. The whole thing will be ready to go to print this month. But then
awesome.
It's a question of getting in line and can they get the paper. But we're pretty sure that it'll be shipping out by May at the latest.
Fantastic. Yeah.
The only premiums we offered is an ability to get yourself drawn into the book, and we do those with most of the books we do. And by I mean Chris Brawley and I, because Chris runs my campaigns and he takes care of fulfillment, and he's a smart guy. And he's also the man behind Bleeding Fool, and the only reason Bleeding Fool exists is as a counterpart to Bleeding Cool, which he didn't like and I didn't like, because Bleeding Cool takes a certain perspective. And Chris felt, for the sake of balance, there should be a comic site that delivers news with a conservative perspective, and that's Bleeding Fool. In fact, he just wrote an article that's up there now about Marvel's war to destroy the Punisher, which I found very amusing and right on.
Right. They do kind of have, well, not kind of, they have it absolutely out for the Punisher, and I'm not sure why.
He goes into it in that story. He explains it brilliantly. Why?
All right.
Yeah.
I'll definitely check that out, because I had one of the super SJW messages I got when it came out that, well, I was streaming with Comicsgate and I'm friends with y'all. Oh no, I'm Comicsgate, and it was called Crazy SJWs messaged me, and one of them was like, "Oh, do you know CG worked with the creators of the Punisher, and that's like a super extremist right-wing thing." And I'm like, I don't think so. I think Punisher is pretty cool. I mean, he's kind of an anti-hero, but it was completely insane. They were claiming that the Punisher was like a white supremacist character, which is obviously bullshit. These people are nuts.
Jerry Conway created the Punisher, but Jerry's far left these days, and he said that he's very much against military and police using the Punisher symbol, and that he wishes the Punisher would turn black. And other stuff. Well, it's too late. We already made the Punisher black when I was writing him.
Well, you got to it first. So what is he gonna do? Oh, I love this. The art looks really good here. That is so cool.
Keith wants to know about articles breaking down the private American scenario. Red State has got one. There's a bunch of others. I'm skipping my brain right now, but I'll post them on Twitter tomorrow if they let me back in.
Okay, I can post them in chat if you want to send them to me privately,
All right.
and I'll relate them in chat.
I can think of them. Kira Davis wrote that article, and I really appreciate Kira stepping up. You can catch Kira on Fox News many nights.
Oh, this one. Okay, I'll post a link for this in the chat. This is what I already have this pulled up. So, we need to combat their narrative, because A lot of mainstream outlets have been taken over by the far left, and not normal liberals, not old school liberals like you were mentioning. They're really extremists who are pushing this weird racist narrative, and they want to restructure society according to some like Marxist ideology, is what I really think. So it's good to have some pushback, and screw what they say. You can't be afraid of being called some names because they're lying, and we know they're lying. So you got to fight back. Let's scroll down, take a look at some of this art. Awesome. Are you, how many books in the series do you have planned?
Well, I only planned the one, but it's like Thin Blue Line. Thin Blue Line was going to be one and done, but the response was so overwhelming that I've already written a second Thin Blue Line, and I'm really happy with that. I think it's even better than the first. And the same guys will be illustrating that. And as you know, Joe Arnold, my illustrator, is a full-time police officer.
Oh, awesome. For Thin Blue Line or this book?
Thin Blue Line.
Oh, right. Okay, I remember that. Yeah, I mean,
do you have a copy of Thin Blue Line?
I actually don't know. I think I do. I remember back
because I asked him to mail one to every member of Comicsgate Kings, but if you don't, drop me a line, I'll send you one.
I think I do. I have a pile of comics I haven't read yet.
Yeah, me too. We all have piles of comics.
Yeah. Snafu for 2. Hi, Radiant. Good evening, Mr. Sir. Thank you, Snafu.
Richie wants to know if Badger will take on Antifa. No, Badger will never take on Antifa because I don't own Badger. And the publisher has made it clear that he doesn't want any controversial stories. But that doesn't mean I can't write a explosive Badger graphic novel, which I have just finished writing. And we're going to crowdfund that. And I'm very excited about that. And it's called Badger Beats the Devil. And that'll give you an idea what the story is about, because that's what it's about.
Awesome. Ethan says he always reads Mike Barron's comics immediately. That is good advice. Don't be like me. Read Thin Blue Line and Private American when you get it immediately. I'm terrible, and honestly, I just haven't read anything in months, so that is completely my fault.
I have a hard time reading too.
No, I just don't have the time. The only time I read is when I'm traveling or on a plane or something. So.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. I'm forcing myself to read though now.
Oh, that's good.
I got all these books, I got to get through them.
Yeah, same here. So this is the cover by Dan Lawless.
Yeah.
Pretty much. I think he has a cover or pinup for every single campaign.
That's right.
CG right now. That looks so good. I love his coloring. It's so Frazetta-like. Look at the muscles.
Is he doing a cover for you?
He did a pinup. That it might be a back cover as well. But right now it's a poster. It's a free poster that's going to everybody on my campaign.
Great.
He's everywhere. I'm telling you. He did something for every single campaign over here. So besides from The Punisher, what other inspirations went into Private American?
Well, I've always taken stories from the news. I think most writers do. It's only natural that our stories reflect the world in which we live. There's a little Captain America in there, but it was inspired as much by the great vigilantes of American history and cinema, such as Dirty Harry or Charles Bronson in Death Wish, because the law can't be everywhere. And the West was settled in large part by vigilantes because the law wasn't out there when the West was being tamed, and explorers were heading west, and they were on cattle drives to move the cattle from Texas up to Montana. They had to hire regulators to keep the peace. And a regulator is a shadowy character who would fall on both sides of the law, like Wyatt Earp. Wyatt Earp is celebrated as being a great sheriff, but he also was a hired gun at some time, and Kit Carson as well. These are mythic figures from American history that fit the vigilante mode.
Mm-hmm. That's true. I think it's strange too that so many sort of characters like of the Punisher are so maligned nowadays because, we get that he's a bit of an anti-hero, but think about how America was settled. There were people who didn't obey the government or who were taking the law into their own hands. Not saying that's always a good thing, but sometimes it's necessary, like you said, because that's what this country was built on. The government can't be everywhere and people have freedom, and sometimes you just need to defend yourself and defend your fellow citizens. So that's how it is.
Even today, a program like Yellowstone reflects that the law can't be everywhere. I mean, I just got done watching the first 4 seasons, and I was surprised at how violent it is. But I loved it.
Sounds like I would like it too. I should check that out.
Oh, you love it too. It's got, the characters are indelible. I mean, they're really well written.
Oh, good. I'll check that out. I love bloody things. Except I don't have the time to watch or read anything, but I will make time, I swear. Did you want to talk about the GoFundMe? Did you want to bring that up?
Well, if people want to contribute, it's not cheap to sue somebody. And we have one of the greatest lawyers operating today, Ron Coleman. And his in the firm of Coleman and Dillon. And his partner's Harmeet Dillon. And she just ran for the chairmanship of the Republican National Committee. Unfortunately, she lost to the same hack who's been in there for 3 terms, because Harmeet Dillon would have been a far better head of the Republican National Committee. But we'll take what we can get. And Ron is committed. And we're not asking for much. We're asking for an apology and a retraction and a letter stating that every word in the article is a lie, including and the.
Whew.
I mean, they described Thin Blue Line as a book about white racist police officers going into black neighborhoods to kill as many black people as possible.
That's patently untrue.
No, and the 2 police officers that are the heroes of the story don't kill anyone.
Interesting. So there's your character doesn't kill the criminals at the borders. It's just about saving the migrants.
Marco Zamora kills people,
but he's killing the bad guys.
Right. I mean, the people he kills are rapists, drug traffickers, and terrorists.
Right.
But in the case of Thin Blue Line, they had never read the book, and so a month ago, Chris contacted not Marco Zamora, but the guy behind the Daily Cost, said, "Have you read the book?" And he said, no. And Chris said, "Would you like to look at the book?" He said, all right. So Chris made a PDF available to him of the whole book. That was 1 month ago. And as of today, they still haven't looked at it.
Wow. Well, it's because they're not interested in the truth. They're interested in, it's about power for them. It's just about pushing their ideology. And if they can lie their way into power, then they'll do that. But let's not let them win that. I really, I can't say how much I appreciate that you are actually fighting this. I wish you all the best. I like this here too. You have links to the Border Patrol Foundation, and the history. That's awesome.
Yeah, and Thin Blue Line, we donated to 3 police charities, including one that's for families of deceased officers, another one to help cops learn jiu-jitsu so they can subdue suspects without hurting them. And Joe is an expert at jiu-jitsu, and he knows all about that. But again, I have to stress I have 3 rules when I write a book. The first is it's my job to entertain, and I never lose sight of that fact. So the book's purpose is to entertain, and I know how to do that. And the second is show, don't tell, which means that any information you can impart to the reader visually to advance the story without using words, you should. And save your words to make them count. Comics are a mixed medium. They're words and pictures, but they're a visual medium. And the visuals often overshadow the words. I can't tell you how often I bought comics for the art alone. And when I read them, I was so disappointed in the story. And I try not to do that with my books. But I am aware of the power of words. And I know that the less words that you put into a comic book story, the more powerful they will be. We've all opened a comic and we've seen a page with 250 words and caption after caption and word balloons, just covering up all the art. And it's an immediate turnoff. You don't even want to read those balloons and captions because it ruins the illusion of entering into the story. It disrupts the reader's suspension of disbelief. And that's why I parse my words out like gold coins. I try to make them count.
Yes. I like that.
Yeah, and one of the ways you use words to characterize. And so I try to have fresh language in every book. And by fresh, I mean common phrases, common thoughts, but phrased in a new way you've never heard before. An example of that is in listening to people, I noticed that when they said, I'm going to, it often came across as Amina. Ahmina. I'm going to go into town and buy a bottle of booze. So I started using that in my fiction, spelling it out like that. And the reaction was overwhelmingly positive. I said, well, I never thought of it that way. But it makes it fresh, you know. And also it gives it that sound of reality, the way people really talk, demotic speech. And the third rule is to be original. And there's no trick to that because we're all unique human beings. And those of us who tell stories for a living are necessarily going to bring our own impressions and experiences to that story, hopefully, and make it interesting. And I can't stress that every part of the story has to be interesting. There can be no dead patches. There can be no places where you're treading water. And we've all seen that in comic after comic. One example is when something explodes, somebody will devote a full page to an explosion. Well, if you've seen one explosion, you've seen them all. So I don't do that. If I have an explosion, and sometimes I do, and I'll open up the page to make it a big statement. I may give it a half a page, or if it's a really big explosion, 2/3 of a page. But then below that, the story continues, because that's the trick to getting the reader to turn the page, to make the story continue. The most important story in fiction is what happens next. And in order for the reader to turn the page, he has to care what happens next. Well, how do you make the reader care? There are a million ways to do it, a million ways, but I'll outline 3 of them. One is you have an irresistible and fascinating character, and the archetype to me is Sherlock Holmes. And the proof is there are more Sherlock Holmes novels since the death of Conan Doyle than there ever were in his day. And we have, like, you have no idea how many Sherlock Holmes movies there are. The second way to do it is to have a fascinating premise. For example, what if we could clone dinosaurs from ancient genetic material and put them into theme parks? What could go wrong? Well, that proves to be a very enduring franchise. And the third way is to have a seductive narrative voice. And that means simply a way of telling the story that the way itself hooks the reader. You can't get enough of those words. And this is more common in prose than in comic books, but you can do it in comic books. But in prose, I think of guys like Raymond Chandler, who created the archetype hard-boiled detective in Philip Marlowe. And Raymond Chandler had a gift with words. For instance, he said he was about as inconspicuous as a tarantula on angel food. Or, I had a sore jaw, a negative bank account, and the rain was coming in the roof. All I had was a gun, but all I had was a gun and a trench coat. I put them on and went out. It was things I'm just paraphrasing there. Yeah, Marcus Kelligrew mentions John D. MacDonald. I just wrote a column about John D. MacDonald for my Substack column, and he's the reason I'm writing today, and why so many of my compatriots are writing as well. And John D. MacDonald, you may not know the name, but you know his novel, Cape Fear, because it's been made into a movie twice, the second starring Robert De Niro.
200 Watch Studio for 2 says, Baron teaching a master class in writing here. I know, right? Don't worry. I'm just sitting here absorbing all of this because, Mike, I am one of those creators who I feel like I'm not a real writer. I'm new to this.
You are a real writer. I think it comes naturally to you.
No, I'm not. So I'm looking to... Well, I'm working very hard, but I think there's things I can improve on, and nothing really like. I think to be a writer, and you have to have something to say, and that comes with a lot of life experience, and you never stop learning. That's the same with art, but with writing, that's doubly true, because you need to not only have your own life experience, but you have to see things from other people's point of view. And I think it's it's an unending journey, and like I love hearing stuff like this. I love hearing the things that you have to say about writing, and that's completely true. I think in a lot of comics, the narrative, people have a cool concept, but the narrative isn't quite as thorough. It's a cool concept, but then they put the art with the cool concept, but then how it's told isn't as thoroughly thought out. And I realized that a lot what makes people continue reading the comic, because you can have cool art and a cool concept, and that means they'll buy issue 1, maybe issue 2, but what keeps them reading afterwards, and this is important, I think what keeps people reading a comic 50 years from now, or like what makes it a classic, is the narrative is told well. Every page is not wasted. Every single line of dialogue is told perfectly, and there's so much nuance to how you can tell the story in the comics medium, how you can control your page turns, how you can pace the timing with your panel sizes, and how you space everything out. So once you really master that, and like this is something I'm still working on, but those are my favorite comics. And it sounds like you haven't figured out. You definitely know what you're doing.
Well, it took me 30 years to learn how to write a novel, but that's because I'm a slow learner. But you touched on something a minute ago that's very important, and that's that a good writer has to be able to imagine every point of view. You have to put yourself into the head of every character, no matter who they are. Just look at Shakespeare. Now, there are no Shakespeares here, and there haven't been for a long time. But Shakespeare wrote Othello about a black prince. And there are people today who say, where does Shakespeare get off writing about a black prince? Well, because he imagined that point of view, and he did it successfully. And he put himself into the head of a Jewish moneylender and Danish kings and princes. He did it over and over again. And that's what a good writer does. William Styron, who wrote Sophie's Choice. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's about a Holocaust survivor, a woman with 2 children who is put in a train and ends up in Auschwitz. And the guard says, we're going to kill one of your kids. You choose which one. And that was her choice. And he also wrote The Confessions of Nat Turner, which is based on a true incident about a black slave rebellion before the Civil War. And he imagined those characters so successfully that those books are hailed as masterpieces until a certain portion of the public learns that William Styron himself was not at Auschwitz and was not there when Nat Turner rebelled, and was not in fact a black rebel. And so they object to him writing those stories. And when you do that, when you start putting down blinders and stop signs and limiting the human imagination, you're just crippling the human spirit. So you got to ignore those people. But you got to have the guts and the talent to imagine every point of view.
That's true. It's so silly that there's this modern idea of you shouldn't be able to tell a story from somebody that isn't exactly like you, whether superficially or who doesn't have your experiences. I think we're all human, obviously, and the whole point of being a writer and being a creative is to be able to look from someone else's point of view. I think all of us can imagine what it's like to be in a war zone or to be in an area of conflict. That's what fantasy is all about. It's the human experience, but in a fantastical framing, and that's how you teach the lessons through fantasy storytelling. Sort of, how do I put this? The stories that you're doing here and that we've touched on, they're mostly set in the real world, but I think even there really shouldn't be that much differentiation between whether this is a story set on the American southern border, or what if it's a fantasy story that's set in a fantasy kingdom that's being invaded by migrants. It's not that different, because it's the human heart. We all can understand it. We can all relate to it. So it's I think this whole idea that if you haven't exactly lived in or you don't look like this character, you can't write them, that's a very uniquely narcissistic and closed-minded point of view. And that's directly discouraging people from being empathetic, which is what they are telling us we should be. You should be empathetic. You should be able to put yourself in the shoes of another person and empathize with them no matter what skin tone they are. And good writers do it successfully. As long as you're respecting the original culture, you're not making mistakes in regards to the setting. If it's a real world setting, then there shouldn't be a problem. And then you're exactly right.
Don't listen to these people. And I think that Tolkien offers a masterclass in creating an artificial world that reeks of reality on every level and acts as an analogy to the real world. I mean, there are a lot of people who feel that the Lord of the Rings, the whole series, is an analogy to World War II and the build-up to World War II, and that Sauron was Hitler. And you can read it that way if you want. But the important thing is that the characters he presents ring true, their emotions ring true, and the world he creates is real. So it doesn't have to be real in the sense that it actually exists or that it's autobiographical. If it's real on its own terms, then it succeeds. And I'm at a place in my life where I have to believe a story is real. And that doesn't mean I limit myself to brutally realistic stories, because I love Alien and Aliens. And both of those stories reek of reality. You believe everything in them because everything is true, right down to the final bolt on the wall.
That's true. What is it called? Immersion, suspension of disbelief, and immersion. That's the most important thing.
Right.
And it doesn't matter what the setting is. The Lord of the Rings is so beloved not because it's has like epic scenery or like it has fancy poetry, which is what the newest like the Rings of Power adaptation totally doesn't understand, because again, these people have no talent. They just want to wear the creations of their betters, the people who came before them that had true talent, like skin suits. And the Lord of the Rings is popular, and it's not even because of like the vast world building. It's because the characters are good. It's believable. It doesn't matter if it's a fantasy world. It's the human heart struggling with itself and with its environment. That's what the story is about. So anyone can relate to it. You don't have to be a hobby. You don't have to be an elf. You don't have to be somebody that's actually lived in Middle Earth or a white person to understand it and relate to it. So it's very important to push back against that sort of thinking.
That's right. It speaks to the human experience, and that's what all the best art does.
Yes. Account Dooku for 5, thank you, sent a $10 super chat about Yellowstone being under fire canceled because conservatives follow it. It didn't post. Google stopped it and refunded me the 10. Are you serious? Really? Oh, that's messed up. Well, everybody go watch Yellowstone now, because that's weird. Yeah. Why would they censor that?
Well, Yellowstone is unstoppable. It's one of the most popular series in history by now. There are already 2 spin-offs running. But Kevin Costner says, I'm getting worn out here. I got to step down. So they're going to start up another series. I think it's going to take place simultaneously and maybe with some of the same characters, but it's going to star Matthew McConaughey. That's fine, because I like Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah, he's cool.
And on the topic of Kevin Costner, there's a movie he made a couple years ago with Diane Lane called Let Him Go, which I can't recommend too highly. Have you seen it?
No. I was calling because you hit 66,000.
It's a masterpiece. It's a thriller set in the 60s. Costner and Lane are 2 ranchers in Montana whose son is married with a 6-year-old boy. And one day, the son dies in a horse accident, and their daughter-in-law remarries into this family of scum. And they're downtown one day, and she's with her new husband, and they just see him from across the street. As first, he slaps her, and then he slaps the 6-year-old boy. And they know that they have to go and get the boy back from this family who live off the grid in North Dakota.
Oh, geez.
It's a real thinking man's thriller.
That's a great setup. Dang. Yeah, that you would want. That's a horrible situation.
It's a very...
He's married with a 6-year-old child, not to a 6-year-old boy. That is obviously no.
Put the hash pipe down.
Yeah. Geek Hero, Bubba, thank you. I'm glad you're enjoying this. You just hit 66,000, so thank you everybody who backed this. If you're backing this book right now, thank you. You can post your backer number in the chat and we'll shout you out. So thank you everybody for your support. Keep on supporting the Private American. This is awesome.
Well, folks, I appreciate it, and I know that you're all going to be thrilled by the book. I have not had a disappointed reader in the past 20 years. Before that, I had, there's all stuff we wrote that we wish we could pull back. But generally, when I look back on my writing career, I'm pretty proud of it. And the bright spot is I think I'm getting better. And I look forward to writing more every day.
That's good. That's good. It's a long, healthy career. You will not be disappointed because it's being written by Eisner winner Mike Barron, the master, and you're going to enjoy this book over and over and over again. Everyone's talking about Mike's bedtime. Chat, that's why we started early.
I see ya.
Legends never sleep. That's right. We're gonna go all night.
It's coming.
You can stay for another 5 hours, right? Okay. Let's see. Is there anything? Oh, sorry.
Watt says he backed the Steve Rude cover, and I'm thanking him.
Thank you.
You should follow Chris Brawley. Chris is a very wise man. He has changed my life for the better. I would not succeed without him. He plans these campaigns. He does the videos. He edits my work. And sometimes when I'm on streams like this, he PMs me and says, sit up straighter, smile more.
He's like your handler.
Yeah.
Like you have to be professional, do this, do that. That's great. I feel like a lot of artists need a person like that because we're just a mess. We just draw all the time. We're right all the time. We don't know how to present ourselves.
I mentioned Bronze Star, which is next. But after that comes Florida Man graphic novel #2. And I'm really happy with that one. It's twice as good as the first one. We were happy with that one, but this one's going to be really funny. Pat Broderick did the cover to this one too. It's called Hogzilla for obvious.
Hogzilla. I like that. Well, look forward to that. How many books do you generally do a year?
It depends. Lately I've just been inspired, and I've been doing a lot of stuff because after Hogzilla, I think we're going to do the Nexus Triplets graphic novel that Kelsey Shannon is illustrating. And there is one volume of that out now, and you can get it from me. I didn't publish it. Richard Meyer published it. But then he said, Mike, you're doing better than me on these crowdfunders. I'm going to turn this project over to you. Because Richard commissioned the series from me. I'm going to mute myself for a second as Ann lowers the garage door. So in the next few seconds, if I mute myself, that's because you don't want to hear the garage door opening. It's right underneath me.
Okay, no problem. I'll just catch up with chat real quick. 200 Watt Studio, thank you for backing. Thank you so much. Gopher also said he just backed the book. Can't wait to read it. Thank you, everyone. Yes, back Private American right now. Gray Wolf Graphics is in chat. Hello. Ralph Mack says, imagine Mike Barron on a Captain America run. Imagine comics being good again. Wow.
Well, Private American is as close as I'm going to get to that.
Yeah. Well, we can't fix the mainstream. They can't, if they don't want to save themselves, we can't force them to. So this is the next best thing.
To see the decisions they make and the way they're circling the drain, I just don't get it.
Yeah. I mean, it's strange. It's sometimes I get a little conspiratorial and I wonder if there's money coming from somewhere else, because how can people not want to make money this badly, but also actively disrespect their fans? These are the people holding you up.
They lack common sense, but I think that's true of society at large these days, that common sense is increasingly rare. I mean, you look at the people in charge and they just don't seem to have any common sense.
Common sense is not so common.
No.
That is true. I am embarrassed for my generation sometimes. It's all our fault, though not entirely, not entirely.
No, not. No,
it's
not.
It's ideological takeover.
It's
so
these creepy old guys have taken over.
That's true, though.
I'm a creepy old guy, but
you're not a creepy old guy at all. It's so strange.
Straight.
You'll have people who are normal liberals, or they were even just like normal people, or not that political. And now a lot of these people in entertainment and comics, they just completely did a 180. They become like insane TDS, the ultra leftists that are spouting nonsense online.
I've noticed that, and a lot of them who work in Hollywood or the entertainment industry have to compulsively virtue signal as part of the price they pay for getting work. I think that's why they do it. I don't know if it's true, but they think it's true. And so you look at their Twitter and their Facebook feed, and it's nothing but one message after another about you miserable people and this. I mean, virtue signaling. You know what I mean by that. It's just, I am such a good person. It's a form of narcissism.
It is. I mean, if you have to say over and over again, look how good I am, look how much I'm fighting racism, and look how much I care about minorities, you probably have bones in your closet. You probably try to compensate for something. And
it violates the show don't tell rule, which applies to life as much as fiction. And in show don't tell, it means if you want to do good works, do good works, but don't carry a PR crew around with you and announce it every evening on the news, like these people who are conspicuously photographed at a soup kitchen on Thanksgiving, like politicians, And then there's somebody like Keanu Reeves, who quietly gives to children's hospitals, takes the subway, and helps people and doesn't announce it. And you learn about it by accident, which only makes you admire him all the more.
Absolutely. Keanu Reeves and the few actors and directors in Hollywood who don't play the Hollywood game, right? And that's why I love Guillermo del Toro so much, because I know that at least, I don't know how he's in his personal life, I think he's pretty private, but he doesn't play the Hollywood game. He doesn't do the virtue signaling, and he's just all about the art, and same as Keanu Reeves, and we know he actually is a great person. He does kind things in his own time without bragging about it. And why can't, because I think people who are in our entertainment, they should be role models. You should be thinking about, are you through your actions really setting an example? Because it's like Neurotic says, these people are adult pretenders, right? So you don't really have that much value. I think they think too highly of themselves because they're very highly paid, because movies make a lot of money, but you're not better than us just because you're in a movie and you're in Hollywood or you're rich. And I think a lot of them lets it get to their head, and they think they're better than normal people. But no, what they really have is a responsibility to set a good example and create good art, and they're completely forgetting about that. I remember a C.S. Lewis quote that I was reminded of recently about, I'm going to butcher it, I'm going to paraphrase it, but he spoke about how an artist's duty is to the public, to entertain and to delight and to teach. And when people who claim to be artists approach their art form in an egotistical way, where they put their own ego and their own achievement and putting themselves on show ahead of actually creating good art, then it's a disservice to their customers and to the art. And I think that's completely true. Oh, hello, hi! How are you?
Without her, I would be lost.
You want to join us?
No, she can't hear you. I got these headphones on.
You guys are adorable.
She says she wants you to join us.
Oh, yeah.
You should join us.
It's been a long day, but thank you.
Well, she's always welcome.
Yeah, you mentioned that about this stars. I think Christian Toto is another great guy that's been a strong supporter. Everyone should follow his column, HollywoodInToto.com, where he views entertainment through a conservative lens. But Christian recently wrote a book called Virtue Bombs, and where he talks about Hollywood, and he says it's ruled by fear. And I think that once you appreciate that, you understand the compulsive virtue signaling, because they're all on this slippery slope trying to get higher and higher and get the most perks and the most money. And they know to do it, they have to hit every note perfectly And by every note, I mean the whole woke panoply of checkoffs that you have to be for. You have to support every idea, no matter how insane, that has to do with identity politics. You got to stick it to the man. You got to agree to racial gerrymandering. You've got to be aware of your white privilege if you're white. And you know, I see that all the time. But anyhow, that's a good book, Virtue Bonds by Christian Toto.
Virtue Bonds. I'll check it out. I could totally believe it, because from just working in animation, which is tangential to Hollywood, it really is an atmosphere of fear, right? And not going to get in too much into what I've seen, but it really is a lot of nepotism. And on the surface, these companies and these people working in the industry, they claim to be really good people. They claim to be such progressives, but when it comes down to it, they don't care about any progressive ideals. They don't really care about minorities or women. They care about saying the right things and using their own power, and they'll harm whoever they can on the way to get power. It's crabs in a bucket, and it's whoever's the biggest psychopath wins often. I'm very jaded about Hollywood, but it's true. It's very dirty. And man, it's sad, because entertainment shouldn't be about that. I think that's why Hollywood is failing now, because they're putting all their politics and all of these internal and external politics ahead of the art, when it should be just about art. And that spills over into comics, because comics is sort of like, I say, no offense to all the comic artists. I know you guys are all beautiful, lovely people, but I jokingly refer to comics and animation as Hollywood, but with uglier individuals.
That's true. I gotta say, Judge Dredd, it's not Virtue Boss, it's Virtue Bombs. Virtue Bombs is the name of Christian's book.
Virtue Bombs.
BOMBS.
Bombs, like
I think
love
he's talking
bombing.
about the movies they produce.
Yep. Well, that's pretty much coming true now, right? Phil's book for 2, thank you. Why did Mike vanish from comics after the 90s?
Well, I kind of fell out of the system in the mid-90s through nobody's fault but my own. I couldn't get any work. I had a sick wife. I took any job I could get. I was a janitor for a while. One day, my late wife said, "We have to move or I'm going to die." So we moved from Madison, Wisconsin, to Colorado, where I am now. And 3 years later, she did die. She died from an overdose of OxyContin and vodka.
I'm so sorry.
It's all for the best, because I believe that I would not be where I am now if I hadn't gone through these changes. And finally, 10 years after not writing a thing, I decided to try it again, because I had an idea for a novel. And I was writing this novel, and I was about 20,000 words into it when I suddenly said, "Holy shit, I get it." I understand story structure. I know what constitutes story. And once you understand what constitutes story, you don't make a wrong step. And before that, and I know we've all done this, those of us who have tried to write, we get off on a tangent. We write 1,000, 2,000, 10,000 words that we love that don't advance the story at all. But once you understand story, you don't do that. And a lot of neophyte writers, they say, "Oh, is it any good? I don't know. Will you read it for me, please?" But when you get to a certain level where you understand story and you're in command of your craft, you don't worry about that. You say, "I know it's good," and you send it off.
That's true. That's a hard spot to get to. That's the elusive sort of, when it clicks, and you know it as a writer, but it's so hard to get there. And I'm not there, but tell me how to reach that point.
Well, Rini, I think you're obviously on the right path, because your last book was wonderful. It was totally entertaining. There wasn't a wasted panel or a word in it.
Oh, thank you. I think it was sort of just a really basic introduction, and I'm really nervous because this is the first writing project I'm putting out that I wrote. And I'm hoping people will like where the story goes. But I'm going to do my best.
Natural talent, and I hate those people.
Well, me too. I don't know how they do it. It's infuriating. Because I don't know how. But
all right. Well, it's past my bedtime.
Yep, I was about to say we're just at an hour, so let me refresh this one more time. And I hope I didn't miss any super chats. I'm trying to be good about this. I definitely need a co-host, but nobody wants to be my co-host. Did it go up a little bit more?
I would be your co-host if we could do it early enough.
Oh sure, I stream through the night most of the days though. I usually start the show at like 8,
Right.
or like 9 more like.
Yeah, well,
So
I never used to go to bed before 1 a.m., but that was a long time ago.
Yeah, I need to be better about that. Well, thank you everybody who backed this book, and thank you so much for joining us. I'm really glad we managed to get Mike over 66,000 today, and I hope people who are watching on the replay, you'll go and back this book because again, Private American is American modern vigilante story is being shadow banned on Indigo and being maligned by disingenuous liars who want to target its creators and just lie about them for absolutely no reason at all. And they're going to get their comeuppance someday. But in the meantime, you can support Mike and you can support all the other creators on this book by backing Private American. And also, if you do feel so inclined, chipping into the GoFundMe, which I will add to the description after the show is over, so people can go there as well. That is the law fund for that terrible Daily Kos article that they wrote smearing you. Is there anything that I missed? Any last things you want to say?
No, thank you for having me on, Rainey.
No problem. I'm so glad to have you on. I really appreciate you taking the time out and chatting to me. So, and anytime you want to promote your future projects, I'm always here. I do these Wednesday streams. It's always for promoting CG books, giving back to the community. So, oh, hell yeah! Look at that! Yay! Punisher! Screw what the haters say. Man. These people get their comeuppance. Cranberry Languors for 2. Good luck on your book, Mr. Barron. Ciao, chat, and Rini. Thank you, Cranberry Languors. All right. So everyone, once again, go follow Mike. His Twitter is also in the description. And I'm going to call it an early night today. Shockingly, I'm actually just going to go work. I'm actually not going to stream for tonight, but I need to work on some private stuff that I can't show people. But I will be on this Friday again for the Ali and Rini show. It'll be on Ali's channel, I think, and I should be doing another member stream this weekend. So don't forget to subscribe and become a member if you want to get all those members perks and be able to see that member stream that I'm going to do. So thank you all again, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Good night.
Good night. Bye-bye.